Hello and welcome to another episode of Overcoming Self-Doubt. I'm Linda Chung and I've been joined by a series of amazing high achievers to share their thoughts and experiences, tools and techniques for dealing with self-doubt. So here to help with me today is Kim Holmes. Hello, Kim.
Hi, Linda.
Lovely of you to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Our opportunity. So I'm looking at all the things that you've done. So Kim and I know each other from 20 years ago at Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley merged with Dima to Discover, and we were part of the product launch team for the MSCW card. And in the 20 years since, Kim has been very busy in a multitude of other things. So I've got here a director in business technology, a seasoned entrepreneur. She's been delivering enterprise technology solutions in financial services, massive passion for innovation, as well as in diversity and inclusion. These are key themes through Kim's corporate life. And that's included creating educational and professional opportunities for women and people of colour. Specifics in that, including founding Discover's Women's Employees Resource Group, and also as chair of BOLD, the Black Organisational Leadership at Discover. And using all of those themes, more recently moved into a role in talent acquisition, and actually approaching a very different life because Kim is due to retire soon as well. So what a journey. And the thing I haven't mentioned is a number of non-profits as well. This list goes on, Kim.
It's been a very busy 20 years since we last worked together.
And when you're joining me on this series, because actually, ironically, when I first shared my intro to this interview series, I became self-doubtful about which platforms I should share on. I shared on LinkedIn without a blink, and then I paused about sharing on Facebook, and then thought it would be quite ironic if my self-doubt about sharing on that platform meant that I didn't, given the theme. And you picked up on it straight away from there. What was it about the topic that caught your eye?
As you mentioned, as I start looking at my next chapter, moving out of a very long career in financial services, some of the doubts that I have is Discover has given me an amazing platform to look at a number of different facets of my interests. Managing technology teams, being super involved in Discover's work in diversity and inclusion, talent acquisition. When I no longer have that as a platform to work from, what is my value to the marketplace? If I don't have that Fortune 100 next to me, what is and that's kind of the fomenting my self-doubt. And that's what resonated with me when I saw your post on LinkedIn, the fact that you were making not only yourself vulnerable, but digging into the vulnerabilities of others.
And it's so fascinating to hear you say that, Kim, because anyone that will know you will know how incredible you are at everything you do. And to think that you would tag that onto just an organization seems almost curious, incongruous to a person listening. But is your reality about thinking about this next stage of life?
Yeah. The thing with working with large companies is they offer an entree into different spaces, right? And so Discover's provided a wealth of opportunities that got me into the room. And now it's reconciling, is what got me into the room what keeps me in the room, or is what I bring to that room what's going to keep me in some of those spaces?
Right. And how are you working through that right now? What approaches are you taking to tackle that self-doubt? I mean, joining me today, I guess, is a show of that vulnerability immediately.
Absolutely. And I think that this is one of the silver linings that's coming from the pandemic, actually, is the chance to actually spend time with myself and think really critically around what does this next chapter look like, and what do I want to get from it, and how is life after financial services going to look, right? Mm-hmm. What do I want the next trimester of my life to look like?
Yes. And so exploring it, take some steps, start exploring.
One of the very practical things I did was last weekend I went out and bought what is a very massive whiteboard. And I put the categories of things that I know I have to do and want to do, that have nothing to do with my current day job, right? So I have my life kind of tasks that I'm working on, some of my nonprofit things that I'm working on, as well as other ideas that I'm kicking around, and just to make it very visual. I'm a visual learner, and so recognizing that I need to let me see what this all looks like, and then hopefully connections will start to flow, and I will start to recognize that interests I have, lots of the interests I have, I'm equipped to cover those. And how do those manifest themselves when that platform of 20 plus years is no longer there? So I think being able to see things has really helped me already start to realize that, okay, I can do this. Mm-hmm. It's more than just where I worked. That's part of the value that I add.
And as you're talking, actually, I can sense the coach and mentor that you are as well, because through your working life, you have coached and mentored a lot of others and getting people to see that picture. So how much of overcoming self-doubt will be sort of coach thyself, mentor thyself?
Oh, it is absolutely foundational, because I need to start listening to the advice that I've given others through time, and kind of that physician heal thyself mm-hmm. kind of thing, yes. Where I need to be mindful of situations where others have come to me, or I've worked with others to kind of help them get over those hurdles. It's now recognizing that, oh darn, I remember talking to somebody about this and kind of smacking myself upside the head and going, okay, listen to what you said and be willing to take your own advice. And that for me is going to be one of my challenges to overcome, is being willing to take my own advice.
And is there a key piece of advice? If I think about the groups that you support, and in particular thinking about women in technology and people of color, because technology is one of those themes that certainly when I started heading up, being referred to as chief exec of a technology company, and you're a woman, so it's clearly flagged as quite an unusual match. When you've been encouraging people onto your programs, what elements of self-doubt have you seen, and how have you helped people to overcome that?
Yeah, self-doubt for those candidates takes the form of not seeing anybody who looks like me in this space before. So what makes you think I can do this? Mm-hmm. Some of it's familial, where families, particularly of younger individuals, haven't seen people who look like them, anyone in their family, take on jobs in the technology sector. And so how can I trust that my child, my aunt, uncle, whatever, is going to thrive in this circumstance? And so to help them, I often have to use myself as an example, right. That I came from a college background and nowhere in there was their technology, right? So my bachelor's degree is in humanities, of all things. And so being able to take that humanities background and turn it into a 30 plus year career in technology, I use that as a way to share that technology, not only the use of technology, but the creation of technology is becoming a ubiquitous type of enterprise, and it's for anybody, right? Mm-hmm. If you can master the skills, technology is a job sector that could be right for you. I now have to turn this on myself as I look at what my next chapter looks like, to say that I've gotten to literally travel the world, thanks to Morgan Stanley and Discover, and build platforms and migrate platforms and meet amazing people from around the world. So I now have to take all of that and remind myself that if you've navigated these spaces, because people who look like me, when I grew up, those were aspirations I didn't even know I could dare to dream, mm-hmm. right? The fact that I've had those experiences, and I have had an amazing career working for Fortune 100 companies when I never thought that was a possibility. I have to keep telling myself, well, you did that. And you're telling other people they can do that. So again, snap out of it. have to be critical, really critical with that self-talk and making sure that I'm reminding myself of my cans rather than focusing on my can'ts.
You're such a great case study. And that journey for others, can you share some of the success stories as well? I know there's been plenty. So of the women that have joined the programs that may not have thought they could achieve this and where they are now. So that would be great to hear.
One of my favorite stories is of a young woman who was doing window dressing for a department store. And she went through an accelerated boot camp where she learned IT quality assurance testing. And Discover brought her along with a cohort of other women in for on a contract to hire basis. So we brought them in as contractors. I was able to place them as testers on a large banking platform migration project where they got to apply those skills. And I am really, really proud of the fact that the CIO gave me the opportunity to hire these women at the end of their contract term. And today, this young lady is a server security analyst. Of the people we've brought on, so we actually brought in two cohorts of women from this training program, and none of them are doing manual quality assurance testing. They're now Scrum Masters and release train engineers and test planners and test automation engineers, and helping to do the kind of the background work for managing portfolios of projects. And so for me, watching them thrive when given the opportunity. So much for me of self-doubt is about putting yourself in position to tackle opportunities when they present themselves and getting out of your own way to take hold of that brass ring when it comes around.
Yes, because ultimately it would be such a shame if self-doubt had meant you couldn't tell that story.
Right.
You know, these lives changed.
Yeah, and I absolutely love these women, and I love to see the fact that they are thriving and filling a very definitive need in our workforce, where we know that there are thousands of tech jobs going vacant for the lack of people to fill them. Right. We also know that coming out of the quarantine, there are going to be so many careers upended by the economic shift that the pandemic has brought on. And so to understand the ability to kind of get out of our own way, as we talk about self-doubt, and getting people to recognize that there may be other paths for them, is something I'm really looking forward to helping people push through their self-doubt to look at other paths and getting out of my own way so that I can help them do that.
So what kind of perspective or positivity can you share with those individuals? What kinds of opportunities do you think could come out of this very difficult time?
I think that the pandemic gives us a chance for reinvention. When things finally start to open up again and return to whatever the new normal winds up being, hopefully we've not wasted the time sheltering in place, hoping that things will be as they were. This is really a time where we should be focused on really looking at what is it we want to do as well as what we have to do, and being willing to take a chance on some things, because what we've learned is that things aren't forever. Mm-hmm. Large retailers, when you know, who would have thought you'd ever seen Neiman Marcus declare bankruptcy, or J. Crew? Mm-hmm. Looking at restaurants that folks would line up for every weekend to see that they've had to lay off thousands of people because of sheltering in place. I think it should give us pause and think about, how do we put ourselves in a position where we're willing to consider, now's the time to try something new or something different that I've always wanted to do, because tomorrow as we know it isn't promised to us, right? We tend to think of tomorrow isn't promised to us as a life or death kind of thing, but it's really, how you live your life kind of thing as well. What we do today, we're not guaranteed employment in that field tomorrow. And while that's theoretically always been the case,
Mm-hmm.
I think we now see in really stark, visceral terms, that's really not the case.
Yes.
And so how do we take advantage of this opportunity to do a bit of introspection and redefining who we are and what we want to do and what interests us?
Yes. A real time to explore, to test, to try something different. You know,
Mm-hmm.
The names you've mentioned, and there's many others, you know, businesses that have been around for a long time, and the new normal hasn't fitted with their survival. So if there was ever a time to try something new, to try a different approach and try a different way, I guess people can feel comfortable, validated that this is the time to try that.
Well, and technology, as we're seeing, is what is kind of keeping things afloat
Mm-hmm.
in this time. So the fact that we can do this meeting, we haven't seen each
Yes.
other for 20 years because there's an ocean between us, right?
Yes.
And we spent our time together when I was on your side of the ocean. But now in real time, we can spend this time catching up. We can still support, we've seen that we can still support our local grocery stores and restaurants through technology. Retailers who have a digital presence are still doing okay, right? Jeff Bezos is going to be a trillionaire soon because his technology is keeping us all supplied
Mm-hmm.
during this, right? So what better time to work with people to think about how gaining skills in creating digital experiences is a absolutely valid way to think about a next chapter for themselves.
Yes. Yes. There's been a lot of commentary how finally digital transformation is actually happening. You know, the language has been around for a long time.
Right. Well, and the speed with which we see things happening, right? We see educators around the world having to suddenly take the promise of ed tech and making remote learning possible. They now have to do it for real,
Yeah.
right? Because we can't be in those communal spaces together. So educators from kindergarten through university are now having to figure out how to continue to deliver content digitally. What we're learning as consumers of that technology is that, okay, the convenience is there, but we have to figure out how we engage with it in meaningful ways.
Yes.
So that digital transformation isn't it's certainly there for content creators, but also for content consumers, and how we engage with this new set of platforms and this new kind of focus on our lives being delivered to us through the ether is really been eye-opening for me, right? I look at Zoom, who heard of Zoom before all of this, right? And Netflix. Back, Netflix, used to try it when the free DVDs were being mailed, and even then that model didn't always make sense because there was a Blockbuster on the corner, right? And I could just go there and pick out the videos that I wanted. As mailing things, that lack of immediacy it was lost on me until now. I can turn on my television and watch anything the world has to offer as their model has evolved.
Yeah.
And recognizing that our ability to be a part of the creation of those types of disruptive models, as well as consumers of it, has been, I think, one of the positive signs of what kind of the quarantine has meant, because it gives us more time to really think about the world in which we live and how we show up in it.
Mm-hmm. So it could be, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful it could be a very interesting time of innovation for us through this.
Oh, absolutely. I see multiple sectors of the economy using this as a springboard for innovation. One of the organizations I sit on the board of is the Northern Illinois Food Bank. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is a new digital platform that they launched last year that has really come into its own during the time of the pandemic. They've created a digital presence called My Pantry Express that allows neighbors in need to order their groceries from the food pantry online, and then drive up to a delivery point. That's a traditional kind of retail delivery point. So maybe the parking lot of the local Walmart or something. So what My Pantry Express does is lowers the barrier to having hungry neighbors request assistance. Either their work schedule or their transportation situation may hinder them from going to a traditional food bank. But what we're finding as often as not is sometimes it's shame. Sometimes it's that that unwillingness to kind of publicly acknowledge that they find themselves in tough times that keeps people away from going to food pantries, looking for help. Where My Pantry Express, where you can order your food in the privacy of your own home and go to a traditional kind of grocery store parking lot and have someone open up your trunk and put it in, just like everyone else who've come through more traditional retail channels.
Yes.
What a mind-blowing kind of innovation for a nonprofit to kind of think of is how do they bring in tools, technologies, thought processes from the traditional commercial sector into finding new ways to deliver support to neighbors in need. So I think this is a really great time, as you said, Linda, for innovation and for organizations, regardless of what sector of the economy they're in, be it government, nonprofit, traditional commercial sector, to lean into innovation because the necessity is there and people are looking for how to access those products and services in new ways when we can't physically be present.
That's such a phenomenal example. I wasn't aware of that, but you kind of think it's taking that tech and applying it in such a commercial way.
Right. Well,
to
it's
enable
a way,
it to happen in a nonprofit.
As we talk about being wise consumers of technology, here's a way to take the ubiquity of the mobile phone, which may be the piece of tech that is most common in households, and how do you leverage that to solve a very fundamental problem of hunger and access to high quality, nutritious food. And it's a way that folks can relate to. Where you're not asking them to think of a paradigm that is foreign to them, getting on our mobile devices and ordering up whatever. Like we do that, right? That's what we do. Yes. I want a pizza, find my favorite pizza ordering app or food ordering app, and pizza shows up at my door.
Yes.
Groceries. That's how we're buying groceries now during the pandemic. And so just being able to extend those models that we already understand and make individuals more comfortable with doing that for even basic needs is really, I think, going to be a game changer as we look at the delivery of nonprofit services.
That's fantastic. And I love the positivity of that. And I'm wanting to wrap up on a very positive note in terms of, with the pandemic, how are you keeping positive, Kim? What are your top tips for staying so cheery?
I think one of the things is to recognize, find content that makes you happy. It's really easy to get on your favorite social media platform and see doom and gloom. It's either the news about the virus, how folks how governments are or are not reacting to it, which can make you mental. So I found that finding fun things on social media. I love the fact that Instagram has become everyone's favorite club, and finding those battles of great artists, or finding those DJs that are still spinning amazing sets, so you can have dance parties at the home. Zoom meetings with friends. I just connected Sunday with a group of women I worked with 30 years ago, and we used to do, there were, we would have our girls' night outs. We played softball together. We bowled together. We did all of these things. We hosted each other's baby showers. We did all of these things together, and life took us away. Again, now that we know that everybody's home, there's no reason why we can't get together, right? So
Yes.
Let's call in another chance for a digital meeting like this, where we can all get together and catch up on who now is getting married and has grandkids, and all of those life happenings that that took place since the last time we've seen each other. So that makes me happy. Plus the fact that my 4 grandkids are only one FaceTime call away. While I can't be with them personally, they love being on camera. They're sharing TikToks. So now they're into TikTok, a number of them. And so being able to see their attempt at some of the dance challenges and some of the shenanigans that they're doing, I can still stay in touch with. So
have you created a TikTok for them yet?
I have not, but I am much more physical. So on days when I actually get to go see them through the door, through the window, I am not above costumes. And so I will share with you one of my favorites. This was my Christmas present for my 12-year-old grandson.
Oh, it has motion.
Yes. And so I am not above showing up in costume to deliver groceries or just to say hi through the glass. And so they think I'm kind of goofy, but it's true.
Embrace your goofy self. I think that's a beautiful way for us to finish today. It's been an absolute delight to speak with you today, Kim. So many experiences shared, your journey, and it's still ongoing, a new adventure ahead. And thinking that it's fine. It's good to have self-doubt. It's normal at every stage. At every stage.
We can't be so arrogant as to always believe that we're on the right path, right? We need to be able to question and kind of test our own thoughts, but not to the point where it stops us.
Yes.
Right. So can't suffer from an analysis paralysis, because sometimes self-doubt forces us to spiral. And so we never move forward. And that's where I'm really excited about taking some of my own advice and pushing forward in spite of not being certain and not being perfect, and getting ready to just kind of launch out there and see what happens.
We'll need to arrange another follow-up interview to see where that leads.
Looking forward to it. It's been so good to see you, Linda.
Really fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today, Kim. Take care.
You too.